Okay, but real talk for a sec. You know that feeling like we've all had it, right? That goal, you're all excited about it, pumped up. Then it's time to, actually do something about it. Suddenly, like, reorganizing your sock drawer seems super
Yeah,
important.
procrastination. Yeah, it's a classic. The struggle is real. And like, we always think, oh, it's willpower, right? Like, if we just had more willpower, we'd be
Yeah,
fine.
right, exactly. But, like, what if, and this is a bit out there, what if it's not about pushing harder, but more about thinking differently? That's honestly kind of what got me into rethinking positive thinking this book. I got to say, this book, it kind of blew my mind. Turns out all those daydreams, the ones where we're already like, super successful and all that,
Hmm.
those might actually be part of the problem.
It's weird, right? Doesn't quite make sense at first. But, Gabriel A. Engen's research, it shows this interesting thing. Our brains, they don't always like fully differentiate between what we're imagining and what's actually happening.
Yeah.
So you picture the goal, you feel good, it's like mission accomplished, even though you haven't, actually started.
So basically, like, our brains are giving us a pat on the back for just thinking about it. No wonder those vision boards don't always work, right?
Yeah, that's it. And the research, it's fascinating. There's this one study, people trying to lose weight, and the ones who just fantasized about their ideal weight, they actually lost less weight than the ones who also thought about the obstacles, the things that might get in the way.
Hold on, seriously. The people who focused on the good stuff, they did worse. That's kind of messing with me a little bit, I'll be honest.
Yeah, it's called mental contrasting. And the idea is we're not ignoring the positive stuff, not at all, but we're kind of balancing it out, with the dose of reality.
Okay, I'm following you. So, but how do we actually like put this mental contrasting into action? Because I don't think, just dwelling on the negative stuff is the answer either, right?
You're right, it's got to be a balance. And this is where the WOOP method comes in. It's an acronym, stands for wish, outcome, obstacle, and plan. It's a system, a way to like make those daydreams work for you, not against you.
Okay, I'm intrigued, I got to admit. Give it to me straight. Where do we start with this Whoop thing?
All right, so first things first, we got to be super clear on that W, the wish. And I'm talking specific here, not just get fit, but more like run a 5K in under 30 minutes. That kind of specific.
So even like more detailed than those SMART goals everyone talks about?
Exactly. Because when you get that detailed, that's what lets you really picture that outcome, the O in Wu Pei. And that's powerful stuff for motivation. We're not ignoring those good feelings, the excitement, but we're using them, putting them to work. Imagine crossing that finish line, feeling that sense of accomplishment. That's the fuel right there.
Okay, yeah, I get that. But there's still that, the whole reality thing to deal with. This is where things get interesting, I think, right? The obstacle, the other O. And you're not talking about, like, external stuff here, like bad weather or, traffic jams.
Nope. We're going deeper. This is all about the internal stuff. Those roadblocks we put up ourselves. I'm too tired. I'll start tomorrow. All those sneaky little thoughts. We're masters of self-sabotage, right?
So tell me about it. It's like they have, like, reserved seating in my brain.
And that's what, like, you have to really see them,
Yep.
identify those thoughts. Because once you know what you're dealing with, then you can move on to P, the plan. This is where WOPE really gets down to business.
Okay, lay it on me. What's the strategy? How do we outsmart those little voices in our heads?
If-then statements. That's the key. You're basically pre-programming your responses. So instead of saying, like, I'll work out more, it's more like, if I start feeling that after-work slump, then I'll put on my workout clothes. Just do a 5-minute warm-up. That's it.
So it's not about willpower in the moment. It's more like setting yourself up for success in advance. I'm starting to see how this could be a game changer.
And get this, it's not just some, like, productivity hack. There's actual neuroscience behind it. When we use these if-then plans over and over, we're literally strengthening those connections in our brains.
Wait, so we're like rewiring ourselves for action? That's pretty wild if you think about it.
It is. And the more you use Woothkid, the easier it gets. Those responses, they become automatic, like second nature, like a muscle you've been training.
Okay, so no more relying on that willpower, which can be a bit unreliable, honestly. I'm on board with that. Okay, so we've got our brains building these like mental shortcuts with Whoopee, but is it really that different from, say, just making a good old to-do list and, checking things off as we go?
It's more than just checking things off a list. It's about shifting your whole mindset, really. See, to-do lists, they're great for like organizing the external stuff, but they don't really touch those internal things, those thoughts that trip us up.
Right, right, the inner critics, the ones we were just
Yeah.
talking about, the ones that, like, convince us that watching another episode of that show is more important than, that big work project we're supposed to be doing.
Exactly. And that's where Whoopie comes in, specifically that obstacle step. We're not just like acknowledging it's there, we're preparing to actually face it. It's like a mental rehearsal for those moments when we're tempted to, give in.
Oh, I like that, yeah. So instead of being blindsided by our own bad habits, we're ready with a game plan.
That's the idea. But I know what you mean. Sometimes those obstacles, they feel so huge, so overwhelming. Like, how do you even begin to tackle that?
Oh, yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah.
One tiny little slip up, and I'm like, well, that's it. I'm just not disciplined enough, I guess.
I hear you. But with Whoop OP, you can shift that perspective. We're accepting that those setbacks, they're going to happen. It's inevitable. It's not a sign of failure. It's just, part of the process.
Okay, yeah, so it's less about blaming ourselves and more about, like, okay, this happened. What's the plan now? How do I deal with it?
Exactly. It's like you've got this mental toolbox and it's filled with all these if-then strategies for all those bumps in the road. And the more you use them, the more confident you become in your ability to handle whatever comes up.
Okay, I can get behind that, definitely. That feeling of, okay, I've got this.
Okay.
But can Whoop really work for everything? Like, I'm thinking those really big goals, the ones that feel kind of scary and vague.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, the bigger and more complex the goal, the more helpful Whoop is. Let's take an example from the book. Say your wish is to have that really difficult conversation you've been putting off.
Oh, those are tough, yeah. It
Sure.
doesn't matter if it's like, with your partner or a problem at work.
Mm.
It's so easy to just avoid it, hope it just goes away on its own.
Yeah, we both know that almost never happens.
Mm.
So in this case, your outcome, it might be like a more open and honest relationship with that person, or maybe just a clear understanding of, where things stand.
Right, right. But then comes the obstacle, and I'm guessing it's like a whole army of inner critics screaming, danger, conflict ahead.
Exactly, yeah. And that fear, it can be paralyzing for sure. Maybe you're afraid of hurting their feelings, or you're not sure how to start the conversation without it, turning into a huge mess.
So how does Whoop help us, like, navigate all those complicated feelings?
It's about breaking it down, taking it one step at a time. So your if-then plan could be something like, if I start to feel anxious, then I'll take a few deep breaths, remind myself that this conversation is important for both of us.
And you could even have a plan for, like, how to actually start the conversation. Maybe jot down a few bullet points,
Hmm.
that you don't lose track of what you want to say.
Yes, exactly. You're creating this framework for yourself so you can approach the conversation with more clarity and confidence. And the amazing thing is, over time, Whoopie actually helps you change your relationship with those challenges. You start to see them not as threats, but as like opportunities to grow.
So instead of dreading those tough conversations, we're more willing to have them because we know, like, okay, I've got the tools to handle this. That's a pretty big shift.
It is, yeah. And it doesn't stop there. Whoopie can help with so many things dealing with rejection, in your career, personal life, building healthy habits, even finally starting those creative projects we always put off because we're afraid of failing.
Hold on, you're telling me I can finally finish writing that novel I've been dreaming about forever?
It's not like magic, but it's a really effective system for getting unstuck. Think about it. Your wish is to finish the novel, right? The outcome might be that feeling of accomplishment, holding that published book in your hands, or even just, the joy of sharing your story with other people.
Okay, yeah, I can feel the motivation already. But what about that voice in my head that keeps saying, you're not a real writer, this is never going to be good enough?
There's that obstacle again. But you see, you're already aware of it, right? Which means you can create a plan to deal with it. Maybe your if-then is, if I start doubting myself, then I'll reread a positive review from my writing group, or I'll just work on a scene I'm really excited about.
So it's all about having those strategies in place,
Yeah,
to redirect our energy, bring our focus back to what we're doing.
that's it. And the more you use Whoop, the stronger that mental muscle gets. You build that resilience to keep going, even when it gets hard. It becomes less about forcing yourself and more about creating the right conditions for success.
I love that. It's like we're not just learning about Whoop, we're actually experiencing it,
Yeah.
you know? But how do we actually make this a part of our daily lives? Because honestly, life gets so busy. How do we find the time?
That's a great question, and that's what we'll dive into in part 3. We'll explore practical tips for making Whoop a habit, something you do regularly so it really starts to change the way you approach your goals and challenges.
Okay, so we've covered a lot with this whole WOOP thing, right? Like from those daydreams that can actually backfire to like how our brains actually rewire themselves for action.
Yeah, we've even talked about those really big, sometimes scary goals, those tough conversations we put off, those creative projects, even how to deal with rejection, all that stuff.
But now, like, the real question is how do we make this like an actual part of our lives?
Right.
Because, knowing about it and actually doing it are two totally different things.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, it's like learning any new skill, I guess. You got to practice it, do it consistently if you want to get good at it.
Mm.
Think of it like building a muscle. The more you use Whoopie B, the stronger it gets.
Okay, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
So where do we start? Do we need to like block out an hour every day to like wooby it out? Because honestly, I don't know if I have time for that.
Oh, no, no, it doesn't have to be like this huge time commitment. Even just 5 minutes, 10 minutes, that can make a difference. The main thing is to make it a regular thing, like, brushing your teeth. Find a time that works for you. Maybe it's first thing in the morning when you're planning your day, or at lunch, or even just part of your evening routine, whatever works.
Okay, so consistency, got it.
Hmm.
But what about the actual process? Do I need a fancy notebook, a special app, something like that?
No, no need to get fancy. Just a regular notebook, a document on your computer, even just notes on your phone, whatever you use. Just have a place where you can write down your WOP plans. That's the important part.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely a pen and paper person. I don't know, there's something about actually writing it down. It feels more real that way.
I totally get that. And here's a tip. Start small. Don't try to tackle everything at once. Pick one or two goals, the ones that are most important to you right now, and just focus on those.
So like prioritize and break it down.
Yeah.
Makes sense. But what if, my goals change? Life happens, right? Sometimes those priorities shift.
That's why it's good to check in with yourself regularly. Review those plans. It's not set it and forget it. Maybe every week or two, take a look. Are these still the goals you want to be working on? Do those obstacles still feel relevant? You can adjust as you go. It's all about finding what works best for you.
Oh, I love that. So it's not about following some strict rules. It's more about making it work for your own life.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to try different things. Maybe you want to work through the whole Wobie Paw plan at once, or maybe breaking it down into smaller chunks throughout the day feels better. Just,
Mm.
pay attention to what feels right for you.
This is really interesting. It makes you realize how much of our success or lack of success comes from those like internal things, not just the stuff that's happening around us.
Yeah, that's a big part of what WOOP is about, that self-awareness. Understanding your own patterns, your tendencies, and then figuring out how to work with them, not against them.
So it's not about becoming like some perfect version of ourselves. It's more about working with what we've got, with like the amazing brains we already have.
It's about, yeah, reaching your potential. And the more you use WOOP, the more natural it becomes. Those mental shortcuts we talked about, they become second nature. You'll start to notice yourself reacting to challenges differently, more proactively.
Wow. So it's not just about achieving these specific goals. It's about like changing your whole approach to life, really.
It can be, yeah. And remember, Whoopi isn't just about external success, getting that promotion or whatever. It's also about that feeling of agency, of empowerment. It's about feeling more in control of your choices, your life, really.
That's what I'm taking away from this whole deep dive. It's not about being perfect. It's about being more intentional, more resilient, more in tune with, what's going on inside.
I love that. That's it, exactly. And that's what's so cool about Whoopie. It's this simple tool, but it can have such a big impact. It's about being the architect of your own life, not just letting things happen to you.
This has been amazing, seriously. Thank you so much for sharing all this with us.
Oh, it's been my pleasure, honestly. And to everyone listening, I hope you'll give Oop a try. Think about it. What's that one wish you have? What outcome are you hoping for? What might get in your way? And what's your plan, your if-then, to overcome it?
Yeah. Take some time today to think about those questions. And remember, every journey, even the big ones, they all start with a single step. Wookie can be like that compass, guiding you towards your goals, helping you navigate those bumps in the road with more grace and resilience.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll see you next time for another exploration of, all those ideas that really matter.